You're halfway through the morning walk. The neighborhood is completely silent. The concrete stretches out in front of you, totally clear. Then the leash throws slack. Your dog slows to a dead stop. Their body stiffens and their eyes widen, locked onto a fixed point down the street. You scan the path ahead. Nothing is moving. There are no cars, no stray cats, no sudden noises. To your human visual and auditory systems, this environment holds absolutely zero data. It is a sensory vacuum. In this fraction of a second, you and your dog are occupying two completely different versions of reality, and how you bridge that gap dictates everything that happens next. The standard human response to this sudden pause is highly predictable. We assume the dog is being stubborn or distracted by nothing, so we tighten our grip and physically pull the leash forward to keep moving. But to the animal on the other end, that physical tension communicates something specific. It tells them that you completely disbelieve whatever their sensory system is currently picking up. Because you've dismissed their reality, your dog now has to process whatever unseen information is floating in the air completely on their own. They are facing a potentially threatening environment without backup. When an animal feels isolated while tracking an unknown threat, their stress spikes. That panic is what produces the explosive behaviors we hate to deal with on walks, the sudden, uncontrollable barking and aggressive lunging at the end of the leash. These high-intensity reactions are symptoms of a disconnect that began seconds earlier, the moment the human decided to ignore the silent signal and step past the pause. Let's freeze the timeline right at the moment of hesitation and look at this from outside human perception. Biologists often refer to this as the air changing. A street that looks entirely empty to us is actually saturated with a heavy, rolling current of olfactory and environmental data. Scent plumes from a mile away, micro-vibrations, pheromone trails. We can map this divergence using this dual-layer diagram. The top half represents the human experience, a flat, empty line, clear of any obstacles. But the bottom layer illustrates what the dog intercepts, a dense, chaotic flow of invisible data flooding toward their sensory receptors. As that chaotic data hits the dog's sensory node, they stop moving. That physical cause is not a loss of focus. It is an active, functional signal. It is the physical manifestation of data reception. The challenge in this moment has nothing to do with obedience. The challenge is whether you are willing to believe this invisible data exists, entirely on faith, before your own senses confirm it. To handle this influx of data, you have to execute a specific physical protocol. When the dog stops, you step into the pause. You do not step past it. This schematic breaks down exactly how that physical shift works. Instead of creating tension by pulling ahead, which puts the human and dog in opposition, you move your body to achieve parallel alignment. You stand completely alongside them. Once you are side by side, you mirror their focus. You take your cone of vision and swing it to align exactly with theirs, overlapping your attention onto that single shared focal point down the street. Next, you take one slow, deliberate breath. This drops your heart rate, eliminates the urgency to keep walking, and physically projects calm to your partner. Finally, you hold this shared orientation for 10 full seconds. You check the environment genuinely and curiously, acting as a second sentry alongside your dog. By executing this exact physical stance, you stop fighting against your dog's instincts. You instantly convert a potential tug-of-war into a highly coordinated, two-node data processing network. It is highly probable that after those 10 seconds are up, you still won't see anything. You certainly aren't going to smell what they picked up on the wind. This practice prioritizes completing a communication loop over identifying a physical trigger. When you physically stand shoulder to shoulder and investigate the empty space, you deliver a clear psychological message. You tell the animal, "I received your signal and I am looking with you." Because you acknowledged the alert and took on part of the surveillance burden, the immediate tension drops. The dog no longer feels the overwhelming pressure to escalate to a warning bark or an aggressive lunge. You didn't find the invisible threat, but you validated their sensory reality, and that validation is the exact mechanism that causes the behavior to de-escalate. If we zoom out from a single morning walk, this protocol dictates the trajectory of your entire long-term relationship with the animal. When you consistently master this tiny, silent pause, you lay the concrete foundation required for all the complex behavioral training that comes later. Over weeks and months, the dog's internal calculation changes. They stop treating the human at the end of the leash as an ignorant adversary they have to fight, and start relying on them as a trusted partner. The 10 seconds pass. The data is processed. You resume walking, moving forward at a calm, unified pace. Building a true partnership with a dog doesn't start with rigid obedience commands or correcting loud behaviors.